Good morning. I'm Kenya McDuffie, council member at large and chair of the Council's Committee on Business and Economic Development. Today is Wednesday, April 10th, 2024, and we're convening this hearing in a hybrid fashion, both via Zoom and in room 123 of the John A. Wilson Building. This hearing is also being streamed live on the council's website. The time is now 9:32 a.m. and I'm calling to order this budget oversight hearing. This is the committee's second budget oversight hearing for the fiscal year 2024 budget season. District government is at a different place financially than it has been in previous years. Last year, we dealt with some lapsing federal funds meant to assist with pandemic recovery and with concerns that the district government may have lower than expected revenue projections. As we look to fiscal year 2025, the district's revenues are growing more slowly than our spending. That is a key structural problem we face. On top of that, Federal Recovery Act funding has expired. The chief financial officer is insisting on refilling more quickly than planned our local reserve fund, and the district's commercial office sector is continuing to adjust to new work patterns. As a result, our budget leaves us with tough decisions. The council must work to ensure that these tough decisions and cuts are not disproportionately borne by the most vulnerable elements and people and small businesses within our community. The fiscal year 2024 proposed budget includes $11.4 billion in local funds and $20 billion overall. That represents a 7% increase in local funds and a 5.6% increase overall from fiscal year 2024. This morning, we'll hear from government witnesses regarding the agency fiscal year 2025 budget from the following agencies: the Public Service Commission, the Office of Lottery and Gaming, Department of Small Local Business Development. Government witnesses are going to have 7 minutes for opening statements, and that's going to be followed by 7-minute rounds for myself and my council colleagues who are able to attend today. At this time, I'd like to acknowledge, to see if anybody on. All right, nobody has joined just yet. And so we will proceed with our government witness, beginning with the Public Service Commission. The mission of the Public Service Commission is to serve the public interest by overseeing financially sound electric, natural gas, and telecommunications utility companies to provide safe, reliable, and quality services at reasonable rates for district, residential, business, and government customers. The commission has 3 priorities: public safety, customer satisfaction, and economic development in its regulatory work. It promotes public safety by overseeing natural gas pipeline safety and other utility safety, and it investigates outages and incidents involving the regulated utilities. It also works to assist consumers with issues they may have with gas, electric, and telecom services. The commission also oversees the utilities' economic development in the district through the regulation of energy projects, rates, and distribution networks of services. The proposed fiscal year 2025 operating budget for the Public Service Commission is approximately $20.8 million, which represents a 4.8% increase from the fiscal year 2024 approved operating budget of approximately $19.8 million. PSC's proposed budget is mostly comprised of special purpose revenue funds. The agency has budgeted for 94 full-time equivalents, which is no change from the approved fiscal year 2024 budget. With that, I'm going to now turn to our government witness for the agency. That's Chairman Emil Thompson. It's tradition of the committee to swear in all our government witnesses, so if I could ask you to raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm under penalty of law that the testimony you're about to provide to the Council of the District of Columbia and this Committee on Business and Economic Development is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you for that. Good morning to you. I'm going to turn it over to you for your testimony. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Thank you, and good morning, Chairman Duffy. As you stated, I'm Emil C. Thompson, Chairman of the DC Public Service Commission. I'm pleased to appear before this committee to provide testimony in support of the Mayor's fiscal year 2025 budget request for the Commission. For FY 2025, the Mayor has proposed an operating budget for the Commission of $20,810,940,000 and 93.6 full-time equivalent positions. This represents an increase of 4.8% over the FY 2024 budget and the same number of FTEs as the FY 2024 budget. The proposed FY 2025 budget includes $0 in local funds, $20,165,940 in special purpose revenues, $631,000 in federal grant funds, and $14,000 in private donations. Special purpose revenues remain the funding source for over 97% of the Commission's budget. According to DC Code, this revenue comes from assessments levied on Pepco, Washington Gas, Verizon, and all competitive electric, natural gas, and telecommunications service providers licensed by the Commission. In addition, the DC Code explicitly states that the Public Service Commission Agency Fund shall be used exclusively for the Commission and its expenses. Regarding the Commission's special purpose revenue funds, there is a net increase of $897,055 across multiple programs to align the FY 2025 budget with projected revenue, primarily in personnel service costs. The increase in personnel services is due to salary adjustments and within grade increases for 93.6 FTEs for FY 2025. As for the federal grant fund, there is an increase of $50,000 in the pipeline safety program to align FY 2025 budget with the projected federal grant award for pipeline safety and damage inspections. The Commission currently has 14 FTE vacant positions, but each of these positions is being moved along expeditiously in the hiring process. We expect significant movement on a majority of these vacancies in the coming weeks. While we are being extremely proactive and strategic in our hiring, we also need to ensure that we maintain the highest standards for employment at the Commission. As you're well aware, our staff consists almost entirely of attorneys, engineers, financial analysts, economists, and highly trained consumer specialists. We compete for these specialties with other public service commissions, the federal government, and the regulated utilities themselves. We use all available recruiting tools, including private recruiters, the resources of the national and regional regulatory associations, industry job boards, and traditional social media outlets like LinkedIn. At our performance oversight hearing in February, I highlighted our dedication to the core values of the agency established in 2023: respect, collaboration, service, orientation, adaptability, and equity. Below are two examples of how we plan to evaluate the quality of our services while keeping within the proposed budget that will support the agency's operations in FY 2025. They will also hopefully yield additional budgetary savings. First, refining workflow processes through technological optimization. The Commission is excited to be moving forward with enhancements to our Integrated Case Management System, ICMS, which will provide automated processing of the PSC's functions, increase transparency and staff efficiency, and reduce costs via paperless environment, and improve control of sensitive information. The largest use of ICMS is the Commission's e-docket system, which is used by both the Commission staff and the public to review documents, legal filings, and other requests. ICMS's integration with e-docket will allow for improved case management by displaying case filings based on assignments, tasks for completion, and relevant due dates. We believe this will help the agency prioritize cases as well as enhance collaboration within the PSC. Then number two, securing, developing, and maintaining a top-tier workforce. The Commission continues to be deliberate with our hiring so that it is targeted and retention rates remain high. We also place a strong emphasis on professional development opportunities by encouraging our employees to attend conferences and join professional associations that will enable them to network with other professionals and remain abreast of best practices in their respective fields. And to enhance morale and interpersonal collaboration, we celebrate occasions such as Black History Month and Women's History Month through office-wide activities and events. All these factors contribute to making the PSC a desirable place to work. In closing, it is our hope that you agree with the Mayor's proposed FY 2025 budget for the Commission. As currently envisioned, it will help us carry out our mission of ensuring that utilities provide safe, reliable, and affordable services at reasonable rates while advancing the district's climate policy commitments. Thank you for your consideration, and I am happy to answer any questions that you or any other council members may have. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony, Chairman Thompson. I actually don't have a whole lot of questions this budget cycle. As you mentioned, your budget's pretty flat in terms of the modest increase. We will go over a few things though. this morning. The public has heard a lot about the fiscal year 2025 budget for the district broadly, being a more difficult budget. But the impact on agencies we're going to see within this committee's cluster is varied. The PSC derives most of its revenue, as I stated in my opening, from special purpose revenue. For the benefit of the public, I'd love for you to describe what it means and how the commission is funded by ratepayers and federal appropriations rather than district taxpayers, as most of agencies across the district are.
Yes, Councilmember, we are a unique agency as such because the way our agency is funded, we are funded by special purpose revenues, as I mentioned earlier, about 97% of the budget. And what that means is every year we send out assessments to not only the big utilities that we regulate in terms of Washington Gas, Verizon, and Pepco, but we also send out assessments to our competitive suppliers in electricity, telecom, and natural gas field. And so each one has to pay a pro rata share of our budget. And so that's what makes up the majority of our budget. We don't, as you stated, we don't receive any or derive any funds from actual taxpayers, but instead ratepayers, people who use the services that we regulate.
And that sort of unique funding source, I wanted to highlight, and I wanted you to put that on the record because, as this committee is looking for ways to fund some of the priorities, as residents have expressed that they don't see in the mayor's proposed budget, there are only a couple of places we can look. And if there are savings achieved by the commission, talk about what actually happens to that funding.
Yes. So one other thing I also failed to mention was that the DC code is very explicit in how those special purpose revenue funds are to be used. They're supposed to be used for the use of the PSC exclusively. And then if we do not use 95% of our budget, we are to return those funds back to the regulated utilities and as well as competitive suppliers.
Yeah, no, we think that's an important point and distinction to make between the Public Service Commission, how it's funded, how it operates, versus some of the more traditional agencies that are within the District of Columbia government, including agencies that fall under the purview of this committee. Let's talk a little bit about racial equity. With that context, how does the commission make budget decisions to address existing inequities in the district? And if there are any particular things that you're working on, programs, initiatives, I'd love to hear about it. We spoke briefly about this during the performance oversight, but I heard some positive feedback from certified business enterprises in the District of Columbia about how DC Plug has opened doors for broader participation from growing CBEs, particularly some minority-owned CBEs in the District of Columbia. What else can you share about that?
Yeah, so I'll start first with where you left off, DC Plug. DC Plug has been provided a number of opportunities. It's a public-private partnership between the DC government, DDOT, and Pepco to underground the most vulnerable feeders in the district. It requires a lot of engineering, a lot of construction work, and we are very fortunate to have created an environment through your leadership that has allowed a number of CBEs to gain meaningful work through Pepco on these jobs and really created companies based off of it. So that's been certainly a very successful initiative. The commission itself, we have a number of things that we have been doing to increase CBE participation. First, in terms of our CBE goals or SBE goals, for the in FY 2022, we exceeded our goal by 8%. Last year, we missed the goal by 0.67%. We spent over $1.4 million on SBE expenditures. This year, the target an initial target has been set, but it has not been refined. So we will certainly have those numbers later in the year. We also have really worked on our supplier diversity initiative. As you may recall, and I believe it was 2020, we revised the MOU, which required each of the regulated utilities, Pepco, Washington Gas, and Verizon, to set targets, which each of them have met over the past few years. Another thing that we have done to expand that program is to then also have a supplier diversity hearing where we have the utilities come in, talk about their compliance with that MOU, and also provide a setting for CBEs to talk with the regulated utilities. Another initiative that we started was what we call the Chat and Chew, which is where we bring small CBEs or just CBEs in general in the district into the commission to really talk about their experience contracting, not only just with Pepco, Washington Gas, and Verizon, but business opportunities in the district as well, to see ways that we can improve and provide a more conducive environment to allow these entities to do excellent work.
I appreciate your efforts, and I likely call on you as this committee continues to work through ways to enhance opportunities for our local small businesses and certified business enterprises. You've heard me emphasize the need to do more for minority-owned businesses, women-owned businesses in particular. And I know that you all have seen some strides over the years through your leadership, as well as the leadership of your predecessor, Willie Phillips, and I really appreciate where you're taking this work to new heights. So I appreciate you putting that on the record. The proposed fiscal year 2025 budget for PSC is $20.8 million, which is a 4.8% increase from the approved fiscal year 2024 budget. Can you talk a bit about how this additional funding is going to be allocated? I know you mentioned briefly in your testimony that is primarily going towards personnel costs. But if you could get a little bit more detail about some of the things you all are working on.
Yes. So as you stated, the majority of those costs, I believe $848,000 that excuse me, will be going to personnel costs. And these are to account for either raises due to promotions and grade promotions or contract negotiations with the union. So the majority of the increase is really going to personnel services. There is a small increase for additional. There's a small increase to ensure that we are able to provide matching funds for the federal grant program, PHMSA, which is the Pipeline Safety Program. I would note that one of the reasons that we have to budget a little additional money there is is the fact that we are in DC. The federal guidelines for the matching process on some of the salary costs don't necessarily cover what it costs to hire and retain excellent people in DC. So we have to allocate a little bit additional money. But those are probably the two biggest areas in which we will see the budget increase.
But no new FTEs for fiscal year 2025 are proposed.
Correct. I believe last year we asked you for 3, but this year we are looking within and working within. I know I talked about the 14 vacancies we have. These are 14, and last year we had 14 vacancies, but these are different vacancies from last year. Again, we expect to have some significant movement on those hires in the coming weeks.
Okay, and the schedule that we received in advance of today's hearing had 18 vacancies, so you've already made some hires, it sounds like.
Yes.
Okay, all right, and are any of these 14 positions considered hard to fill positions in your?
They're certainly competitive positions, and that's one of the things that I'm always talking with the team about is how we can make sure we are able to attract the best for some of these positions. We are, like everybody else, competing for some of the best workers in the nation's capital. And so we're competing against the utilities, we're competing against the federal government, we're competing against the trade organizations for this talent. But I think we have some good plans in place to make sure we get them and retain them.
Got it. What about vacancy savings? Given that there have been some vacancies for a little while now in this fiscal year, how much in vacancy savings?
I believe our vacancy savings rate is about 4% right now.
Okay.
And so we certainly have those monies, and we're looking how to reallocate them within the agency.
Okay. According to attachment 4 of the commission's common budget question responses, I don't know if you have it handy, but the commission has reprogrammed funds within the agency 2 times during fiscal year 23 and 24 to date. For each of these, at least a portion of the funds were able to be reprogrammed due to salary lapse and related fringe benefits from FTE positions that remained vacant during the fiscal year. Along the lines of the question I asked earlier, just tell me about your thoughts about how you're using those funds when you have the sort of salary lapse or vacancy savings available to you.
Yes. So when we do those reprogrammings, a lot of times what we'll do is we'll use sometimes that money for consumer outreach.
Mhm.
Some of our programs we do focus especially on making sure that some of our populations that aren't don't have access to the same information, they're getting it. So one of the things that we are very proactive about the commission is our commission Office of Consumer Affairs that goes into the community and presents information about how you can save money on your bills, how you can have better energy efficiency in your homes. And so a lot of times these programmings help support those and bolster those programs.
Okay. Do you expect any additional reprogrammings for this fiscal year, 2024?
It's under consideration, but I don't have a definite answer for you at this moment.
Okay. And based on this budget, I'm not seeing a lot of changes to the commission's operations for fiscal year 2025. Should stakeholders expect any changes to the commission's operations in the coming year?
No.
Okay. I don't have any additional questions at this time. If there's anything else, the committee's going to reach out to you all and expect you will be responsive as you have been in the past. Is there anything else you'd like to add to the record before we move on to the next agency?
No, I just want to thank you today for allowing me to testify and your support of the agency. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Next, we're going to turn to the Office of Lottery and Gaming, or OLG. The OLG regulates the sale of gaming products and charitable gaming activities in the District of Columbia. OLG, over its history, has awarded more than $3 billion in prizes and transferred more than $2 billion to the district's general fund, which supports essential services. It's also helped raise more than $134 million for nonprofits through the licensing of charitable gaming activities in the District of Columbia. They are also in charge of the implementation and oversight of sports wagering in the district. The proposed fiscal year 2025 operating budget for the OLG is approximately $352 million, which represents a 0.6% increase from the fiscal year 2024 approved operating budget of approximately $350 million. The OLG's proposed budget is mostly comprised of enterprise and other funds through the lottery. The agency is budgeted for 94 full-time equivalents, an increase of 1 FTE from its approved fiscal year 2024 budget. With that, I'm going to turn to our government witnesses for the Office of Lottery and Gaming, Director Suarez and his team. Before we get going with your testimony, if you all could raise your right hands to be sworn in. Do you each swear or affirm under penalty of law that the testimony you're about to provide to the Council of the District of Columbia and this Committee on Business and Economic Development is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you very much. Good morning to each of you. You can begin your testimony whenever you're ready, Director. If you can hit the button at the base of your mic.
There we go.
Yep,
Okay,
there you go.
perfect. All right, so good morning, Chairman McDuffie and members of the Committee on Business and Economic Development. I'm Frank Suarez, Executive Director of the Office of Lottery and Gaming. And thank you for the opportunity to present testimony on OLG's proposed fiscal year 2025 budget. So joining me today are my colleagues, Ridgely Bennett, Chief Counsel for OLG, Craig Lindsay, our Agency Fiscal Officer, and Peter Alvarado, our Director of Regulation and Oversight. Now, OLG's mission is to responsibly maximize revenue generation for the District of Columbia through the sale of innovative lottery and sports wagering products while providing gaming regulation and oversight that upholds the highest standards of integrity and public trust. This mission emphasizes OLG's commitment to responsibly growing revenue for the district through both sales growth and expense management. Since its inception in 1982, OLG has transferred $2.3 billion to the general fund. Now, OLG's fiscal year 2025 gross funds operating budget is $352 million, which supports 93 full-time equivalents, or FTEs. This is $2 million more than the fiscal year 2024 budget of $350 million. OLG's budget reflects an increase of $1.4 million across multiple programs to support costs associated with operational requirements. The budget also includes an increase of $584,861 to align projected salary, step increase, fringe benefits costs, and other staffing needs across multiple programs. Financial operations accounts for the largest portion of OLG's budget at $274.1 million, or 77.9%. Financial operations includes pricing, commissions, transfers to the general fund, and comprehensive financial management services to OLG. Our gaming operations makes up 19.7% of the budget at $69.2 million. This portion of OLG's budget includes support services for lottery and sports wagering retailers and players so that they can benefit from the portfolio of gaming offered by OLG. Marketing, trade development, which is our sales department and licensing, our sports wagering regulation oversight, information technology, particularly the gaming portion of that, our draw operations, security and prize claim center services are funded under gaming operations. Gaming operations also supports OLG's regulatory responsibilities for privately operated sportsbooks, games of skill, and charitable gaming operated by nonprofits. The smallest portion of the budget is agency management at 2.4% or $8.7 million. This funds administrative support and resources for OLG operations and programs. As a sales and revenue generating entity, OLG is an enterprise fund and relies on its revenue generation to determine its budget and deliver on its mission. OLG's efforts to increase revenue are continuously evolving as OLG's retailers and players still feel the impact of a diminished commuter base and sustained inflation. The ongoing lack of commuters, combined with the loss of flavored cigarette customers, has strained OLG retailers and led to retailer closings. OLG has experienced a significant decline in its retailer network, losing an estimated 49 retailer locations between fiscal year 2021 and fiscal year 2024. Overcoming the impact of these obstacles remains an ongoing challenge for both OLG and its retailers. Much of the innovation and optimization efforts implemented in 2024 will benefit OLG and its retailers in fiscal year 2025. This includes accepting debit cards at all DC Lottery self-service machines and launching the new DC Lottery mobile app that allows players to easily scan their printed tickets to check for winners, while also allowing them to play iLottery games from almost anywhere in the district. Retailer recruitment has been revamped with new training for sales coordinators, new recruitment tools, and dedicated bi-weekly retailer recruitment periods. OLG has also developed a new 5-year strategic plan that will provide increased focus on high-impact revenue-generating initiatives and deliver a roadmap for continued growth. Now, OLG is on track to complete the transition to the FanDuel sports wagering platforms for both mobile and online and retail locations in fiscal year 2025. This will provide an array of benefits to the district that include a top-notch sports wagering experience from the country's #1 sports wagering mobile app, significantly increased revenue that is guaranteed with a minimum of $5 million in fiscal year 2025, and continued support of 64 small, local, and minority-owned businesses in the district that rely on sports wagering to drive traffic into their locations and provide an additional revenue stream through sales commissions. Privately operated sports wagering is also expected to continue to grow. During fiscal year 2024, the Lottery's Regulation Oversight Division has approved 3 new Class B licenses. I'm excited about the opportunities ahead and look forward to the continued responsible growth of gaming revenue for the district. In closing, Chairman McDuffie, I would like to thank you, the council, and the mayor for your continued support of the Office of Lottery and Gaming and for this opportunity today. This concludes my testimony, and I'm happy to answer any questions the committee may have.
Thank you for your testimony, Director. I do have a few questions, not a lot. I think there's a theme this year across agencies with many of them remaining flat in terms of their budgets or having modest increases in their operating budgets, such as the case with OLG with a modest proposed increase in your operating budget and a modest increase in terms of FTEs. So just a few questions for you all this morning. The proposed FY25 budget for OLG is 0.6% above the approved FY24 amount. Inflation has increased more than that. How does your agency plan on working with the same level of funding in FY 2025?
Yeah, so one of the things, obviously, one of the things that we try to do throughout and continuously is manage our expenses as well as generate revenue. And so we've been looking at a lot of our operations from both the licensing side and the regulatory side, as well as our revenue generating operations for lottery and sports wagering, and have tried to really minimize the expenses there. And also, I think in what was published, and Craig, you can make sure I'm correct. I think it said we were increasing in FTE, but we're actually not. So that's going to be changed. Our FTEs will be flat. So again, we're just managing our expenses. Some of the slight increases, again, are really just due to inflation and cost for salary increases. And then we're also trying to make some IT enhancements to get our systems up to where we really want them to be. But for the most part, we've tried to cut expenses where we can.
So if you could, and just make sure you all state your name if you respond directly. But I'd love to hear a little bit more about the situation with the FTEs. What we saw in the budget books was increasing from the approved 93 FTEs in fiscal year 2024 to a proposed 94 FTEs in fiscal year 2025. So talk about what you all are thinking, or if you could expound on what Director just said.
Yeah.
Good morning, Chairman McDuffie. I'm Craig Lindsay, the agency fiscal officer. Simply what the issue is there are 6 positions in our licensing department.
Mhm.
One of those positions actually is inactive. However, in the system, it's not coded as such. And so that's the adjustment that's going to be made, which will then keep our FTE count at the same level it was in the previous year.
Okay.
Yeah.
So just to be clear, it would be 93 proposed for FY 2025?
That's correct.
And is
Yes.
that, how is that going to be reflected? Is that something that it gets included in, how does that get updated for our purposes in considering the budget? I don't know if that makes its way into the mayor's errata letter or some other way.
Sure. So I've been in communications with OBP. That's something that they have to do on their end because the systems aren't available to the agencies to make the changes. So that's a structural change that they're going to make on their end.
Okay, but will there be some official update to this committee with respect to
Yes,
the FTEs?
yes, my conversation with them is that they were going to provide it to council. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Do you expect any adjustments to the services provided to residents and customers as a result of just how flat the budget is for your agency? If you could turn your mic on for me.
Yes. No, I think if anything, we're trying to increase the services and continue to build on some of the momentum that we have. So like this year, we launched a mobile app just this past month. And so we're going to continue to build on that. We've rolled out some enhanced vending machines. We've rolled out the ability to do debit cards at vending machines. So for the most part, they should be about the same, if not a little, improved over the next year. Because a lot of those costs we've really already taken those on, and now we're just sort of enhancing those things.
I just made a quick note. You mentioned part of your response is you launched a mobile app.
Yes.
If you could talk about what specifically that app
Yes.
is.
So this is on the lottery side specifically.
Yeah.
So one of the things we've been lacking is we haven't had a mobile app in the district for lottery specifically
Okay.
in a while. We had one years ago, but it was very specific to a program there. But this will actually allow players to scan their tickets, for example, and see if they're winners. So they don't have to go to locations or to a retail place. If they don't have a winner, they can also purchase tickets online. So now the mobile app will have iLottery on there as well. So they can play games, purchase tickets. And so it just makes it a much more convenient experience for players overall. Some of the things that players have sort of also been wanting is just the ability to use a mobile app to get what the winning numbers are, what the jackpot levels are. And so all of that will be easier for players to do now moving forward.
And when did you all launch that app?
So that was in March.
Okay. Okay. So it's only been going for.
It's good. Yeah, very new. Very new.
Got it.
Yeah. And so we'll start advertising it. We wanted to give it a little bit of time,
Mhm,
make sure if there
mhm.
was any kinks in there, we'd work through those, but you'll
Okay.
start to see advertising around it.
In terms of the agency's revenues that you all are generating through the lottery, how much was generated in fiscal year? I don't know if you have the numbers
Yep.
for 2022 and 2023.
So in terms of total lottery sales, we had 216,994, which transfers to the general fund was 37,951,000.
Which year was that?
That was 22.
Okay,
And then 23, we had sales of 221,235 and, millions, 221,235,000. And then transfer was 32,195,000. And that's on the lottery side alone.
yes. Okay, and just what are the numbers for those two fiscal years, 22 and 23, for the sports wagering side?
So yeah, so on the sports 22, we had sales of or handle of 58,289,022.
I'm sorry, if I hate to interrupt, but I didn't catch whether you said it was, are you talking about fiscal year 22 or 23?
22, yeah,
20, got it.
22 handle was 58,289,000. And then 23 handle was 69,564,000. And then if you want the transfers, the transfer in 22 was 2,719,000. And then in 23, it was 1,255,000.
What was it in 23?
1,255,000.
And what was it in 22?
2,719,000.
2,719,000.
Yeah.
Got it. Thanks.
Mhm.
Talk a little bit about, if you could identify any programs or allocated funding initiatives that the OLG has proposed budget for fiscal year 2023 that is specifically designed to address or contemplates racial or economic inequities throughout the District of Columbia, and explain in detail how, if at all, these programs or initiatives or allocations addresses those inequities.
Yeah, one of the things that the budget always funds is our advertising and communications. And we make sure that in everything that we do, that we're being diverse and that we're targeting a broad group of players and demographics across the district. We also have our events program that we try to make sure we have events across the district and supporting a variety of different racial, ethnic, and minority groups. And then we also form a sports wagering program, and Peter can speak more to this, but we also partner with DSLBD to try and attract small businesses into the sports wagering industry and do different sessions that educate them on how to become a licensee, or how to be part of the sports wagering.
How's that going? I'd love to hear a little bit more
Yeah,
about that.
Peter, can you provide an
And
update?
if you could just make sure you say.
Peter Alvarado. I believe it's going well. We've had sessions that go from the licensing portion, what it is to get licensed as a sports wagering operator, to bringing in those that are operating currently in the district, bringing in and them giving expertise as to what it is to run a Class B sports wagering business. And so they get firsthand knowledge of those individuals that are currently doing it. So I believe it's going well. It seems to be the feedback I get from DSLBD is that they're pleased with it, and they're continuing their efforts to just bring in more and more local businesses into it.
How many Class Bs have been licensed up to this point? I heard the testimony about approving 3 new Class Bs.
Yeah, and
And
I think that's 2 have been approved and one's about to be approved, actually, correct?
Yes, when's on your desk.
Yes, so that'll make 3, and we had 2 before, so it'd be a total of 5.
Okay, and do you know the names of, or at least the ones that have been approved?
Yeah, so Over Under is one of those.
Okay.
Grand Central Sportsbook is the other one that's been approved. And then we also approved recently Sports and Social, correct? And another Grand Central location, so their second location.
Got it.
So those are the 4 that are current.
Okay. And do you all track, I know DSLBD should have this information, but do you all track just how many CBEs have been engaged or contracted with through the program?
Peter, I don't think we track the number of CBEs.
We don't track the number of CBEs.
Okay.
I think-
I'll ask DSLBD that question.
Yeah.
Have you all gotten any complaints from CBEs?
About the.
Just
the-
any concerns, complaints about the sports betting program? Ability to contract, do business? issues?
No complaints. I think we've got, when we made some of the changes, we did get one CBE, and I can't remember the name, that was working with BetMGM, that was concerned about the change to FanDuel and the competition that would bring.
Mhm.
But I haven't seen any complaints. Have you gotten a complaint?
No, I
Peter?
mean, I would say over the past 2 years, the only concern is that some of the Class Bs were raising concerns about having to apply the same standards in operating their business that maybe a Class A had to. And so we addressed that in adjusting the minimum internal control standards applicable to Class Bs to more reflect that business model as opposed to the Class.
Minimum internal control standards were
Correct.
adjusted. What does
Yes.
that mean?
We have about a 99-page document of minimum internal control standards that the sports wagering businesses are supposed to follow. And it goes everything from separation of duties. It goes everything from how they handle the cash, where the cash is placed, surveillance cameras.
And the concerns for the Class Bs was what, if you could just concisely without,
Yes, their concern is that they had to come up with separate security staff, surveillance staff, and, multiple individuals in that separation. And so we adjusted it to fit their business model so they wouldn't have to do that.
okay. How are you all doing on the lottery side in terms of like CBEs? Are you all, tell me about what your goals were for 23 and where you end up.
Mhm.
And also
Yeah.
tell me what your goals were for 22 and how you did with 22.
So 22, I'll start there. The goal was 18.5 million,
Mhm.
and we spent a little over 18.5 million, so we ended up at 100.18%, so about basically 100% of the goal. 23, our goal is 20.886, so 20.9 million. And right now the system has not been opened up for us to update that, or
Really?
we're waiting to update it. Is that correct? It's been opened? Okay. Okay, April 1st, it just opened up. So it needs to be updated with the correct spend amounts and adjusted. And, every year we've usually met or surpassed
What's the actual number for 22 though?
the goal.
The actual
Spend
spend
in
amount
23.
in
Do you have
22. In 22.
18.565.
Okay. Got it. And it sounds like you all are not, the updates haven't been made to the
Right.
point where you can report 2020. What do you expect it will be? What's the range you expect it will be?
Yeah, well, the goal right now was 20.886, and I don't remember, Craig, is that adjusting? Yeah, if you speak to it.
So right now, as the director said, the goal is 20.8. That's what's in the system
Mhm.
currently. The exercise is underway
Mhm.
to actually provide the actual spend for each one of those line items that made up the goal.
Does it usually happen this late into the fiscal year?
So this is later than what it typically happens. However, it's not far off, maybe a couple of weeks, because it's usually sometime in March that it's open back up.
Okay.
So
Okay.
it opened back up April. So
Okay.
that exercise will be completed. And then at that point, we will actually ask for additional exclusions based off of the spend. And then we expect that the goal will then be adjusted based off the spend. Right?
Okay. How many vacancies are there currently?
Well, originally, I think what you would have seen was 15.
We
but
saw
we've
15.
hired 2 since,
Okay.
so we're now at 13.
And what did you all hire for?
We hired a advertising manager, and also I'm trying to remember, a digital content analyst, I believe. So
Okay.
in the marketing.
And what about vacancy savings?
So Craig, you want to speak to that? We don't have savings, but I'll let Craig
Sure.
explain it.
Sure. We don't have.
Your mic's not on.
We don't have vacancy savings. As you're aware, everything that we save actually gets transferred to the general fund.
Okay, so how much was transferred based on vacancy savings in FY 23?
I don't have that number. We don't necessarily track how we transfer based off of particular programs or
Well,
personnel.
how much
Yeah.
total was transferred? So whatever you transferred in terms of like
Is it-
the,
That's
the
right.
number that we talked about
It's-
earlier, the
it's
vacancy
inclusive in
savings
that.
are included?
That's correct.
Oh, I
Yes.
thought y'all track vacancy savings though. I thought that usually there's a question that I ask of all the agencies and then there's an answer in terms of how much is
How much?
represents the vacancy savings in a fiscal year.
Okay, so in terms of how much we've saved from non-field positions is what
Yes,
I don't have that number on hand, but we can certainly get that number
okay,
for you.
okay.
Yeah.
So do you
I think-
know
I
after,
think
given that we're more than 6 months into the fiscal year, how much is available for vacancies, positions that have not yet been hired?
I don't have, I can get that number certainly, but I don't know what it is offhand right now.
I mean, I thought that was usually a question that you all have
don't.
readily available to answer. No? Tell me.
Because we don't usually have vacancy savings. I mean, we don't usually track how much we're saving from positions.
From positions that
But
are
of course,
unfilled?
but we have, I mean, it's definitely an easy number to get.
Okay,
sure.
if you could report
Yeah.
back to the committee that number. it'd be helpful.
Absolutely, absolutely.
It looks like your office is increasing communications by about $263,000 in FY 25. Is that accurate or is that not the case?
Yes, you said increasing
Communication.
by 100 and, yeah,
Is that the IT?
no, communications, that department, yeah, it's increasing. Look at that, I got you, I got it.
Answers.
This is increasing by 263,000. So communication, yes, is decreasing, it's increasing by $263,000.
Okay,
That's comprised of PS. And then the remaining, I think 163 is the result of a website maintenance contract that's been added into the budget.
and that's in the communications line?
Yes,
Yeah.
that is correct.
That's where the website sits.
If you could turn your mic on.
Sorry. Yes, that's where the website expenses and where it sits. So the
Okay.
communications team is in charge of the website.
Yes.
Got it, got it. Okay, and then the increase, you said is primarily PS. It's not a new position, so is it, what was it?
It's step increases,
Okay.
benefit changes.
How many people are in the communications division?
It is,
communication-
they have five FTEs.
Yeah.
Okay, so what portion is for the salary increases? And what portion is for the website?
So 163 is for the NPS or the website, the net. So in with that, you also have slight decreases in other line items. And then the PS portion is $100,000.
Got it. Curious about what 20, the average 20. So looking at, there's another part of the budget where I see it, the IT services line, there's an increase of $704,000 in FY 2025. What's that for?
I believe that's the combination of.
So about 284,000 of it is pertaining to PS. Okay, then the other 420,000 is pertaining to, I'll tell you what it is.
You said the remaining 284 is for PS and,
And then the remaining 420
mhm.
is pertaining to I have
highlighted
it
things.
here.
Okay. It's hard. So the remaining part of it is a combination. There's hardware that we're updating
Right.
because we have some very old hardware that we need to update for internal systems. And I believe that's around 400.
It's 420,000.
Yeah.
So is that on an existing contract or how are you actually, how are you spending that? What, is it with one vendor or how does that work? The updates to the hardware? Is it
Well,
existing
I
license?
can confirm this for you, but my speculation, I don't know, Craig, if you know for sure, but don't we do that through OCIO?
Yeah, and I don't believe it's under contract
Right.
yet. It's proposed things that need to be done.
Right.
So tell me about, like, what needs to happen? What's going on with the hardware?
We can get you specific details, but my understanding is things like servers and things like that need to be updated because they're
Okay.
past or getting close to past their life. So
Okay.
it's just updating.
And is there anything in your FY 24 budget for that?
Yeah, I'm
in
sure we always have something.
In FY 24, I don't think there was some budgeted for things such as that, but I'm not sure that the amount that was budgeted was what was necessarily to do the things that I think the director of that department deemed needed to be done.
And which is this, which department is
This is
this?
IT.
This is IT.
Okay. Can you circle back with the committee specifically about what
Yes.
Yeah.
portion of the FY 2024 budget is being utilized for these sorts of updates?
Yep.
And how much of that, if at all, in this current fiscal year has been spent here
This would be
today?
for 25, but
I know, I get that.
yeah.
I know, I get my initial questions were about the 704,000 for 25, but
Yeah.
I'm just curious as in terms of
How
what
much
was
was it
happening
here?
in 24,
Yeah,
if
yeah,
it's
yeah.
some similar updates are happening.
So we can give
or-
you the detail 24 and 25 spent
Yes.
on the category.
Yes.
If that works.
Thank you. In your gaming operations, there appear to be two significant increases that I want to know a little more about. There's a $366,000 increase in sports wagering regulation and oversight with an additional FTE. And I'm curious as to what that's for. And maybe I should say additional FTE, but
Yeah.
there appears to be an FTE for this particular.
For gaming operations
Allocation.
under sports regulation. Peter, are you? Um,
So, so this is actually just a realignment of a position from one department to another. That's why you'll see a negative in security.
Okay, how much is the negative in security?
Well, it's just one FTE, so there's just a change in FTE.
that-
I think that was the original,
Go ahead.
yes, I think that was the original question about the FTE. That's where the increase in the FTE is. So you have an increase in that sports and regulatory department, and then you have a decrease in the security department, which all report to that particular department.
So what I'm looking at in the budget book
Mhm.
is approved for FY 24 is 2.480. What's proposed for FY 25, and this is in the sports wagering
mhm.
Oh, we're talking about the budget.
regulation and oversight.
Mm-hmm.
What's proposed in FY 25 is 2,846,000. which appears to be $366,000 over
Mhm.
what was approved for FY '24. And then there seems to be a corresponding one additional FTE. I understand what you're saying in terms of the
FTE.
FTE that is reduced in the security category, but I don't see where the funding associated with that is commensurate with the increase in sports wagering, regulation, and oversight.
Okay, so forgive me a second, because some of it is gonna be due to PS,
Okay,
right, in total. And so let me see if I can tell you what the. Okay. So the number for the NPS portion of that is 140,000.
and what would
Okay.
that 140,000 MPS represent?
So there's an increase in IT hardware acquisitions. I think it may be related to some type of system to help with license approval, licensing system.
And this would be in the sports wagering
Yes.
part of the budget and not in the IT part of the budget?
Yes, this particular one is in the sports wagering budget.
What else is in there? How much is for PS then? Or something else? I don't want
For
to, I don't
PC
want to,
Sure. No,
I don't know if that is for PS actually. You said it's 140 for MPS.
Mhm.
It's $366,000.
Is 225,936,000.
What's that number again?
225,936.
And this is just, what's included in PS? It's just,
Salaries, fringe,
got it.
benefits.
Okay. There's also an increase in trade development / sales of $480,000 with 2 FTEs over FY '24. So what's contemplated in that?
And that's gonna include, I think that's gonna also include 2 departments. So that's also gonna include the licensing department as well. And so you have increase in supplies for ADA inspections. Then you have a nominal amount for anticipation of staff vacancy to kind of fill the gap of vacancy in staff.
To fill the gap of vacancies in staff, what does that mean?
Right, so for that particular team, they
Mhm.
have some vacancies.
Okay,
And so there's a nominal amount that's included in the budget to kind of fill the gap if they need to get outside help.
so it's a contract.
Contract.
Okay,
Well,
how many
yeah.
vacancies are in that team?
3.
And what does that team
3
do?
right now.
What do they do in trade development sales?
Well, the licensing team
Licensing.
is in that group
Okay.
as well, so
Correct.
they license the retailers. So they do all the processing of licenses and renewals and things like that. Do ADA inspections. There's several different that group does. The license.
The ADA inspections
Yeah,
are
so
done by
the
the
licensing
licensing team.
team. Mhm.
So the two additional FTEs are for which team?
Uh, which two FTEs? For
What I see
the
is,
chapter?
I'm looking at trade development sales.
Yeah,
I'm looking at
right.
proposed
Gotcha.
17.5 FTEs. Approved FY 24 was 15.5 FTEs.
Correct. So, and so if you even go back further, but so that's part of the corrections that need to be done.
Mhm.
That particular team should have F 10.5 FTE count. There are
For
six
24,
for 25. That's what should be in there.
10.5.
10.5, correct. There are some of them, so six additional positions are in there for licensing. One of them should be inactive. Then there's a position also in there that should actually be part of the finance or the financial operations group,
Mm-hmm.
which is why if you look at that group, you'll see a negative position, a loss of a position from the previous year. So,
Okay.
so once all those corrections are made, then you won't see again, there's really not going to be any change in FTE counts for that particular program or activity.
Okay. So what would the budget look like for, pull that back up, for trade development sales? Proposed budget for FY 25 would be what? Because today it's 4,062,000.
Right, so the budget itself doesn't change. It's just the FTE count that changes.
Okay. So there will be still, even when the FTE is adjusted and corrected, the budget is still going to be $480,000 more as proposed in FY 2025.
Well, no, you're correct. Minusing out the PS,
Okay.
right? But the NPS part of it is going to stay the same,
Okay.
right? So just the NPS, which I mean, just the PS would change.
So if there is budget for this particular division to hire a contractor,
Mhm.
what happens to the FTEs that are vacant within this division? Are you still trying to hire for them?
Yes. Yes, it's just to fill the gap until they're hired.
Right, but that's in regulation oversight. It's not in trade.
Licensing is
In trade, yeah.
Anything else before we move on that?
No, I think
Okay.
that's it.
So let's talk, I think I brought this up in performance. We talked a little bit about games of skill, and I know it's taking some time to get it up and running. With this budget, are you able to stand up the program with new licenses, compliance, regulation, et cetera?
It's been running.
Okay.
It's been,
How many licenses are there have been issued?
Peter, where are we, 16?
Let me check, give you that number.
How long, while he's getting the number, how long has it been up and running now? How many years?
Probably at least 4, I think 2020, but we can confirm the exact date.
Okay. How about this fiscal year alone? How many?
We currently have, as of March 31st, we have 25 game of skill retailers, 5 distributors, and 1 manufacturer.
25 retailers, 5 distributors, and 1 manufacturer. Okay, and how many have been approved? How many were approved last fiscal year in those categories?
I don't have the breakdown by fiscal year, but I can get you that.
I'd be curious if you could follow up with the committee on just how many applications have been received, what fiscal years those applications were received, and how many were approved each fiscal year since inception of the program?
I have the applications per fiscal year. I can give you that now.
It's up to you.
Yeah.
It's up to you. Sure.
So far for fiscal year 24, we received 17. In fiscal year fiscal year 23.
17 what?
17 applications, game of skill applications.
So do the applications come in based on whether a retailer, distributor, or manufacturer? How does that work?
These would typically be the retailers. The distributors and manufacturers were back in 21.
Okay.
Fiscal year 21.
So these are all retailers that you're talking about.
Correct.
So it's in FY 24, how many retailer applications were there?
17.
Okay.
And then in fiscal year 23, there was 33 of them.
Okay.
We only had 1 in fiscal year 22, and then we had 14 in fiscal year 21.
14 and 21.
Correct.
Yes.
And the ones in fiscal year 21 included the distributors and manufacturer.
Okay. If you can just break, in addition to that, thank you for providing that
Mhm.
today, but if you can break it down based on what I talked about earlier, just
I can do that.
approvals as well. How
Correct.
many were approved?
We'll do- And just to clarify, it started 21.
It started in 21. Okay.
We
Fiscal year
started
21.
applications and approvals in fiscal 21.
Okay. Do you have the revenues that have been generated from games of skill?
I do have that. Just give me one moment.
Sure. You talked about a little bit while he's getting that information. If you could just talk a little bit more about where things are with FanDuel. I know you mentioned some of it in your testimony, but this in
Yes.
terms of what's the latest updates in terms of launching?
Yeah.
That.
Yeah, for sure. So we're excited to have FanDuel launching their mobile app and website in the district this month. We're tentatively looking at April 15th. And we say tentative just to make sure it may be a little bit earlier, depending on if they can get everything done. But right now, that's the timing for the mobile app and online launch. And then retail, we're still working through the exact timing of that because it requires the production of the self-service kiosks and the timing of getting those and rolling those out and training with retailers. So
Mhm.
that will take longer. We're hoping to do that hopefully in the summer and work through that throughout the summer, late summer. So that's the current timing. And we'll be winding down Gambit mobile and online this month as well to transition all the players to FanDuel.
Okay. in terms of where things are for, when does the current contract expire?
Yeah, July 14th,
14th?
2024.
July 14th. So we're talking about just a few months away.
Yes.
What updates do you have in terms of what the council should expect in terms of that contract? And just
Yes,
to be
so
clear,
we-
this is one contract.
Yes, one contract for both lottery and sports, so it's all combined. And what we're looking to do is to put in a request for an extension of 2 years. And that would allow us to do procurement, so an RFP. And then depending on those results, it could be the same vendor, it could be a different one, but if it's a different one, then it gives us a year for implementation.
So why 2 years?
1 year for the RFP process, so it takes at least a year to get through and, put out an RFP, get proposals in, vet those proposals, and then award it.
I
And then
know we
also
talked
get
about this about 4 months ago, though. I'd asked that you all start to look at that, given that you said on the record then it takes a year lead up
Yes.
time for an RFP. So you're telling me there's been nothing done towards an RFP?
No, we're working on RFP, we just haven't finished it and released it yet.
So you need an entire year to do that? Or do you
No,
need a few
it's
months to
after
do
you
that?
release it,
Mhm.
the whole process for the Office of Contracts and
Mhm.
to vet it, that's a year. And we can provide you with what that timeline consists of, but there's a lot of steps in that process. For example, you kick it off, then you have a conference with all the potential vendors. You give them some weeks or months to respond because it's a very complicated request, right? We're talking about all the gaming systems for lottery, as well as instant ticket printing and processing, and then all the sports stuff. And one thing to be clear too, the RFP will be separated. So we're going from a combined contract to now splitting it out. So we'll have one for lottery and all of that, and then one for sports.
Okay,
that's
so
what we're
so
working
what
on.
should the council expect on July 14th or before then?
And definitely a request for an extension.
By
before then.
when?
Well, we're trying to get that done now, but we're working through some of the specifics.
And so what you're proposing to do in a solicitation was separate the two,
Yes,
but you're not separating the two because it's one contract.
legally, my understanding is legally, we can't.
And I'd love to hear from your GC so legally you cannot separate the lottery from the,
That's my understanding, but.
Right, because as you recall, excuse me, it's Ridgely Bennett, Chief Counsel, Office of Lottery and Gaming, morning
good
Chairman.
morning.
As you recall, the contract that was done for the original lottery sports betting contract was no bid. It took specific legislation to do that,
Mhm.
and that legislation contemplated a combined contract. And so now if we're going to extend it, we're going to extend it as a combined contract. And the new procurements, because we will be going through procurement processes, will divide them up.
But legislation, and I'm testing my memory here, but okay, I appreciate the update.
Yes.
When should the council expect a request for an extension?
Yeah, we're trying to work through that as soon as possible. Some of the legal aspects of that and sort of working through what the next one will look like with the CBE and the SBE for the subcontracting plan. We're waiting to get that. We actually just got that yesterday. So we're going to work through that. And,
Have they hit their subcontracting requirements
for which part? The current contract?
for
Or
both?
as far as I know, but really,
For lottery? And is it separate for lottery and sports betting, the subcontracting requirements?
no. I mean,
No, the
combined.
subcontracting plan is combined.
Yeah.
They're meeting their goals. And now we're looking to, because it's a extension of the contract, they need to provide a new updated subcontracting plan for the extension.
But are you, so are you requesting, will you be requesting from the council an extension before knowing whether or not they actually achieved their subcontracting requirements? Because you said they're
No.
meeting their goal.
Right now, they will meet their goals.
They're on track to meet their
They're-
goal.
Right.
Right, they're still performing and the contract is
Right.
still going on.
Can you provide the committee with an update on that? specifically what's been spent with which CBEs? Is that how you all get it, or how do you
Yeah,
all get the
there's
information?
a report that they provide.
Okay.
Uh,
Can you provide that report to us? What's the most recent update report that you all have got?
I don't have to get back to you on
Okay.
what the date of that is.
All right, if you can get that to the committee? You can do that?
Yes.
Okay. I don't have any additional questions at this time. Obviously, there's some follow-up. Is there anything else you want to add to the record before? Actually, yeah, if you can give us that response.
Yeah, I can give you the response for the tax revenue from games of skill.
Yes.
So for fiscal year 24 through February, it was $44,232.20.
Give me 1 second. 44,000,
$232.20.
20 cents.
For fiscal year 23, it was $37,311.40.
Mm-hmm.
For fiscal year 22, it was $16,940.40. And then for fiscal year 21, which was when we started, so it's not a full fiscal year, I believe it begins in May. It's $3,326.70.
Should we be getting more from this, from games of skill? It seems
It
relative to overall lottery, relative to some of the other stuff, like, it seems very modest.
it is it was very modest, especially before in 23, in fiscal year 23. I've noticed over the last 6 months, there's been a dramatic increase in the monthly that's coming in. It was averaging in 23 and 22 about 3,000 or less a month, and now it's averaging about 8,300. I think February was 11,000, and so it's been steadily going up.
To
we've
what do
seen-
you attribute the increase?
They did a change in the actual game offering. They switched out, there was a particular game they were using that was a bit complicated and wasn't popular with the folks and playing it. And so they switched the game, and that seems to have brought popularity to it and more demand, and we've seen the corresponding increase.
Okay, and how many pending applications are there for games of skill?
I don't have that number right now, how many pending that we have at this moment.
Okay, but are there some
Get that to
pending?
you.
I believe there are, yes.
Okay, and how long has it typically taken from start to finish, assuming that OLG has everything it needs? for approval?
For games of skill, it's typically been taking about 60 to 90 days.
Do you all see that, or in any way view it as an area of growth in terms of the lottery's offerings and revenues that can
Well,
be
what
generated for the
is,
city?
we just regulate it, so we don't even get the tax revenue.
Mhm.
It goes to OTR, but,
Wow.
so we just regulate it. Whether it can grow is a good question. I think there are some things that are required here in DC that aren't required in other jurisdictions. The example I'll give you is, and Peter, make sure I say this right, but the alcohol license, or they're required to have a.
They're required to have a Class C alcohol license, which is
Right.
sell, pour, and serve in location, which is usually a restaurant
Mhm.
and stuff. And so the alcohol license to simply sell alcohol doesn't qualify.
So do you all see some areas of legislative reform perhaps to address some of these challenges?
I mean, I think that's one of the things that if you have to have that, that's gonna limit how many can have that. So by nature, that's one limitation I would say. that
Perhaps that's
keeps it
something that
from-
council should be looking at.
Of the 65 applications that we received, 34 did not qualify because they didn't have that type of alcohol.
So almost
license.
half of the folks are
Right, yeah, so if you're
Next.
looking to expand revenue on that, that would be one place to look and say, do we want it to be available in places that don't serve alcohol?
Have y'all seen any problems with customers, any abuse in that area around games of skill? Anything we should be worried about as a
Yeah,
committee?
I
complaints,
have not
correct? No.
received any complaints
So
or.
again, it's not at big scale.
Right.
So, and like Peter said, I think they changed the game, and I think that's helped the ones that are there.
All right, well, not probably, I'm sure the committee will follow up with you
Yeah.
on some of that as
Yeah.
well. All right, anything else you'd like to add to the record before we?
No, thank you for the opportunity. We've got our follow-ups, and we'll make sure to get those answers back to you all as soon as
Okay.
possible.
Thank you. Our next agency we're going to hear from is the Department of Small and Local Business Development, or DSLBD. DSLBD supports the development, economic growth, and retention of district-based and small businesses and promotes economic development throughout the district's commercial corridors. DSLBD administers and oversees the Certified Business Enterprise Program, oversees compliance regarding district agency and non-government project CBE utilization, and aids in business development by offering training and financing assistance to small businesses. DSLBD also supports the revitalization of the district's commercial corridors through the DC Main Streets program and Clean Teams programs. The proposed fiscal year 2025 operating budget for DSLBD is approximately $22 million, which represents an 8.1 decrease from its approved fiscal year 2024 operating budget of approximately $24 million. DSLBD's proposed budget is mainly comprised of local funds. The agency is budgeted for 57 FTEs, a decrease of 1.8 FTEs from its approved fiscal year 2024 budget. With that, I'm going to turn to our government witnesses, including Acting Director Rosemary Suggs Evans, and I'm going to ask you all to raise your right hands to be sworn in before we hear your testimony. Do you each swear or affirm under penalty of law that the testimony you're about to provide to the Council of the District of Columbia and this Committee on Business and Economic Development is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you very much. Good morning to each of you. Appreciate you all joining us. I'll turn to you, Director, for your testimony.
Thank you. Good morning, Chairperson McDuffie, members of the council, fellow colleagues in the local business community, and residents of the District of Columbia. My name is Rosemary Suggs Evans, and I am the Acting Director of the Department of Small and Local Business Development, also known as DSLBD. Our agency's mission goes beyond mere words in the law. It embodies our commitment to equipping small and local businesses with the tools they need to flourish and enrich the district's dynamic economy. As a longtime advocate for supporting local businesses, I am honored to discuss Mayor Bowser's fiscal year 2025 budget today. The budget outlines critical, equitable investments, enabling the agency to uphold its vital mission of supporting the backbone of our local economy, the approximately 75,000 small and local businesses that employ over 260,000 individuals and account for nearly 50% of the district's workforce. Despite the financial pressures for the next fiscal year, the mayor's $21 billion operating budget continues the district's progress in equity, economic development, and it gives every resident a chance to participate and enjoy in the fruits of the district's success. This budget allows us to prioritize essential services, enhance efficiency, and foster long-term sustainability. More importantly, it empowers businesses to innovate and elevate the city's economic landscape. Furthermore, we are pleased to support the mayor's investment in downtown with the $550 million investment towards the total transformation of the Capitol Run Arena and Gallery Place. This investment will boost local businesses by drawing more foot traffic and consumers to the area. It will also invigorate efforts to attract new and thriving businesses. With the teams committed to DC until at least 2050, the strategic investment will have a reverberating impact on our economy and across our city by creating jobs, spurring economic activity, and generating tax revenue to fund programs and services across all 8 wards. Together, these initiatives symbolize our commitment to building a thriving and resilient city for all residents and businesses. As part of our commitment to the retention and growth of small business community, the FY25 budget for DSLBD includes a $22 million in local operating funds. These funds will empower us to continue providing innovative programs that support the growth of small and local businesses in the district. As part of our ongoing efforts to serve the community, we are enhancing the Cannabis Fund with an additional $300,000. This program provides invaluable resources to DC residents and entrepreneurs interested in the regulated medical cannabis market. We are committed to supporting the growth of local businesses in DC, and this budget allocation is a testament to that commitment. Additionally, the budget includes $250,000 for the Aspire program, which assists returning citizen entrepreneurs and small business owners. This aligns with the city's commitment to aiding our formerly justice-involved residents in achieving self-sufficiency, supporting their families, and ending the cycle of recidivism that ultimately hurts our communities and economy. This program is vital in providing resources and support to individuals re-entering society after incarceration, offering them opportunities to build businesses and contribute to the city's economic growth. I would be remiss if I did not highlight the DREAM program, which has funding of $600,000. This program, allocated to micro businesses in Wards 7 and 8, is an 8-week training program where the participants learn valuable skills such as pitching a business, financial accounting and projections, marketing and branding, and access to mentorship. Upon finishing the program, the entrepreneurs are provided with an opportunity to present their businesses to a panel of industry judges. This allows them to demonstrate the expertise and abilities they have acquired through the training. This process not only encourages the growth and longevity of their businesses, but also plays a crucial role in the economic progress and advancement of the community. We remain committed to supporting our businesses through robust retail program, which is crucial in providing funding to sustain our neighborhoods' vitality and assist our small and local businesses in achieving growth and prosperity. In fact, this fiscal year, we are in the process of awarding nearly 50 small businesses up to $10,000 each. This will significantly impact the city's corridors, each reaching every ward, helping drive economic growth and creating new job opportunities for the community. With the proposed budget in place, our Main Street program will continue its efforts, substantially impacting local businesses by offering them the critical support and resources they need to flourish within their respective communities. Furthermore, we are committed to supporting the clean teams, ensuring that our commercial corridors remain clean, inviting, and attractive to residents, visitors, and patrons alike. While I presented an overview of our FY25 budget, this funding enables the agency to further its primary goals of fostering successful businesses, developing opportunity-rich neighborhoods, and supporting thriving residents, all key elements of Mayor Bowser's DC Comeback Plan. The extension of the plan to support the small business community is a key aspect that acknowledges its pivotal role in driving local prosperity. The plan demonstrates Mayor Bowser's commitment to building a more inclusive and resilient city for all residents and businesses. DSLBD's efforts are intricately connected to this plan. With a forward-looking approach, we are pivotal in fostering the expansion of small and local businesses, which will continue to offer essential services, goods, and employment opportunities to the residents of the district, shaping a prosperous future for our community. A notable example of our impact is the Art All Night Festival. Spanning across all 8 wards, Art All Night serves as an asset to the small business community. Businesses participating in the event have reported a surge in sales, enabling them to bolster local economic development further and create a vibrant and animated atmosphere. Consequently, our neighborhoods nurture closer-knit communities, which attract additional residents and contribute to the population's growth. And as Mayor Bowser continues her historic 3rd term, which is entering its 2nd year, the budget provides our resident entrepreneurs with the essential tools they need to succeed. It reinforces our commitment to ensuring the district continues to thrive and spearhead positive change while remaining steadfast in our dedication to supporting business owners at every stage of their entrepreneurial journey. Lastly, I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to the devoted team at DSLBD for their unwavering commitment to the small local business community and the work we do every single day, and to Mayor Bowser for her visionary leadership and for entrusting me with the responsibility to oversee these impactful investments. Thank you once more, Councilmember McDuffie, for giving me the opportunity to testify today, and I look forward to answering any questions you may have.
Thank you for your testimony today. I do have some questions for you. Give me one moment. thank you again to you and your team for getting back to us and our pre-hearing questions and for your testimony this morning. The proposed budget for the agency, as you mentioned, is a little bit more than $22 million. There's a reduction of approximately 8.1% in the proposed FY 2025 budget over the approved fiscal year 2024 budget. And I'm curious as to how this reduction is going to impact the ability of your agency to provide services that it provides and fulfill the mission that it has.
So thank you for the question, council member. It certainly is a reduction, but the reduction is not going to negatively impact the ability of our team to continue to do the work that we've been doing for so long. One of the things that we are very committed to is working and trying to find how we can be more efficient with the dollars that we have. And that is something we not only are doing internally, but we are also encouraging those small and local businesses and our main streets and our commercial businesses to do the same. So I'm confident with the funds that were allocated to DSLBD, and I'm confident that we'll be able to continue to provide the one-on-one training assistance that we have done with our small businesses. We will continue to show up at the library every week to support residents and business owners that are interested in learning how to grow their business. That work will continue.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about the capital budget for the agency. That has also decreased more significantly by 41.8% from $1,460,000 in FY 2024 to a proposed $850,000 in FY 2025. Talk about the impact that decrease is going to have on the agency and what it consists of.
So that decrease is a positive thing. So what it represents is the work that we've been doing on the district enterprise system. So we expect to have the majority of our modules completed by the end of FY 24. And then as we move into FY 25, that 850,000 will cover going back to make some fixes to modules that were released much earlier, some years ago, and then also addressing some of the smaller modules that we need to take on as it relates to small business training assistance. There's going to be a module for that, but that's not as large of a module as our certification or compliance module or a grants module.
Talk more generally about how the DES system is functioning and whether it's meeting the agency's expectations and needs in terms of what the system has to offer or supposed to offer.
So we have a couple of modules that have been released and are currently active. As it relates to our certification module, it decreased the application process and time that the user had to engage in, which was very positive. As it relates to our compliance module, there are a number of modules that are being released. What we will be able to do, I'm happy to report by, I would say, is it the end of this quarter? We will be releasing our contracts management module. And so what that will do is currently, as you are aware, we monitor the subcontracting plans on contracts within the district. That has been more of a manual process. And then we have a system that is just not up to snuff. Not a good technical word, but so what our DES system will allow us to do is make that process, automate that process. So the prime contractor will go in, let us know when they've been paid and how much they've paid their subcontractor. Once that subcontractor is listed in there, an email will automatically go to that subcontractor to say, hey, we heard that you've been paid. Can you confirm you've been paid this amount on this date? It will also allow us to automate and track whether the prime contractor has paid the sub within the necessary time frame. So it gives us a lot more information much more quickly. It allows the end user, prime and sub, to submit that information in a very easy format. We are also working on our grants module, and I want to turn it over to, if you don't mind, to my Chief Administrative Officer, because he can better articulate. Sure.
Before you do, and just make sure you state your name for the record when you testify. I want to ask about the compliance module though. Does it allow for a subcontractor to engage with the agency if the prime has not done what is required in terms of entering information on the contract?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
So we still have our specialists that will track that information. If the prime contractor states that they have paid the sub a certain amount on a certain day and that is not accurate, the sub will then be able to say, no, this is what I was paid on this date. So it gives us and allows us to collect that information.
It's kind of, the red light actually means it's working. which-
Good
I don't know why it's not green, but
Good afternoon. I'm Sarah Turner, the agency's Chief Administrative Officer. The director mentioned our grants module, which will allow us the functionality which we've been able to use and benefit, which some of the main streets were able to attest to, the ease of use and reporting as it relates to them being able to update their expenses throughout the reporting cycle. One of the key benefits is the ease of use and the decrease in administrative time needed to submit that information. Moving forward, we hope by the end of this fiscal year to have the grant applications process complete, which will again allow us to perform all the necessary functions related to grants management in one enterprise unit.
okay, thank you for that. I want to talk a little bit about some testimony we heard here from the public. On Monday, we had our hearing where we heard from more than 90 public witnesses, and multiple witnesses appeared before the committee and provided testimony asking the committee to reinstate the Main Streets enhancements that myself and my team here at the committee were able to fund with the support, overwhelming support of my colleagues on the committee and the council more broadly, given the impact of the Main Streets programs on small businesses throughout the District of Columbia. And I want to ask you some questions about that. As you know, last year, the committee added an enhancement of $1.3 million in the FY 2024 budget. Several witnesses mentioned how the enhancement was used. They talked specifically about some of the things that they were doing, and they support it for fiscal year 2025. As you also know, the mayor's budget does not include that enhancement. What would be the impact on the main streets, in your opinion, with the loss of the revenue from that enhancement not continuing into fiscal year 2025?
So again, I think the budget that the mayor has provided certainly is sufficient for us to do the work that needs to be done. One of the things that we do when we're talking with our small businesses, not only our businesses on the main streets, but our professional services businesses, is to also encourage them to not rely on one source of funding. And so, okay, so one of the things that has been encouraged, not only by us, but part of the National Main Street Program, is for Main Streets to also rely on fundraising and work to diversify the funds that come in. DC Main Streets had received the largest amount of funding of any Main Street organization in the country. So there's substantial funding that is provided by the district to our Main Street organizations. What we want to do is continue to work with the Main Streets to, one, encourage them to continue to do their fundraising, but also encourage them to collaborate with each other. And so that when they are providing services to those businesses, we're not providing services to businesses in just one commercial corridor, because the retail businesses in commercial corridors in, say, Ward 4 need the same services that those commercial retail businesses and commercial corridors in Ward 5. So we want to make sure that our main streets are working together to provide that training where they can then see those cost savings internally.
Have you begun having those conversations with the main streets about your thoughts on that collaboration?
Yep, we've been having those conversations. As I mentioned, when I was here, performance oversight, I've been going out and talking to the Main Street executive directors and going into the corridors. Again, the fundraising aspect of it is something that is promoted through the National Main Street Program, and we have had some significant fundraising by some of our main streets. And we want to encourage the other main streets to do it as well.
Are you hearing any support for those suggestions that you made about how to better collaborate or raise funds through fundraising?
What I have heard is, not specifically as it relates to fundraising, but what I have heard is better collaboration, and that's something that the Main Street EDs are interested in doing, is just figuring out the best way in which we can get that done. But that has had a very welcome response.
Are you concerned at all, though, that Main Streets won't be able to maintain some of the services or perhaps maintain current staffing levels if the enhancement is not provided in the fiscal year 2025 budget?
I'm not concerned about that. I feel confident that our Main Street executive directors, many of them have been doing this for a long time. You don't always receive the budget that you want. That may be what they are feeling, but there are ways in which we will work with them to ensure that our small businesses across the district have the services and resources that they need. There is also not just, there are grant programs, Robust Retail, which is out right now. Main Street's businesses can benefit from that as well. So there are a number of resources that the district provides our small business community that are available to our main streets to help to supplement what they feel they may not be able to provide due to that 40, I think it was at 47 for each main street.
Okay. Let's talk clean teams. And more specifically, let's talk wages for clean team employees. And for the benefit of those watching this hearing at home, can you talk about and perhaps provide an explanation about what clean teams are and how they're funded?
Sure. Clean teams are members of our community that support the commercial corridors, and they support the commercial corridors in a number of ways. Most significantly is making sure that the commercial corridors are inviting and a welcoming space for residents and visitors to come to. They make sure that the commercial corridors are kept clean, make sure they look beautiful, and they are a sense of, when you see one of the clean team members on the corridors, they provide, even though it's not their responsibility, a sense of security. And so they are an intricate part of economic development that sometimes doesn't always get recognized, but they provide and do a number of things to support our small and local businesses within the corridors.
So talk about how they're funded.
It's funded through money that comes through the council.
And do you or does a member of your team know how many total clean teams there are in the district?
There are 40 clean teams in the district.
40? And does each clean team of the 40 have the same budget?
They do not.
Okay, talk a little bit about why that is the case. Why the budgets for the clean teams in some cases different?
So the budgets for the clean teams are decided by the council that funds the clean team. So what goes into that determination, we are not privy to. But that's how the funds are allocated and determined.
Okay. When's the last time Clean Team funding was enhanced by the executive? If at all, if you can recall.
I can't.
Curtis Lewis, I'm the Agency Fiscal Officer. We would have to look into that. I believe a number of years ago, but there are a lot of iterations.
Right. And I mean, that's almost an unfair question. I didn't really expect you to have on the tip of your tongue, like exactly when it was, so much as it was trying to make the point that the funding in terms of the wages is tied to the living wage in the District of Columbia, correct?
Yes.
And the living wage in the District of Columbia at one point, I think when this was passed several years ago, was, I don't know if significantly is the right word, but it was definitely more than the minimum wage. But now the minimum wage is essentially caught up to the living wage, so that the clean teams, the floor is a little over $17 an hour, correct?
Yep, 17, I think in July it'll go up to 17.50.
If you could, I'm having trouble hearing you a little bit.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It's 17,
Mhm.
and I believe in July it goes up to 17.50.
Okay. One of the, not one of, but what we heard in terms of testimony from Clean Teams members that I found very compelling was that it's tough to live, to provide for oneself, let alone, individuals who are providing for a family. It's tough to do that in the District of Columbia, given the wages that they are paid. Have you heard that concern as director of DSLBD?
I've heard concern from the clean team employees, certainly, yes, about being able to not just make more money, but also kind of, do and expand within their career. And so one of the things that we are committed to, and we've had discussions with some of the managers of the clean teams, is how can we support those employees through this may be their first job, but we don't want it to be their only position. So how can we grow them professionally? And so those are things that we are looking at internally, not just with DSLBD, but with our sister organizations, to find opportunities for not only training, maybe being able to get them CDL certificates, but also opportunities that they can use to come in and work in the district. So I think one of the things it's important to have, be able to, when you can, increase salaries, but it's also important to put people on a trajectory so that they are growing professionally and the salaries will come from that.
I appreciate that. I think that's a good idea. Do you all have a time frame within which you'd like to be able to do what you just articulated?
I'd like to be able to, this is one of the things that when I became interim, I started having discussions about, and I've talked to some of my colleagues. Everyone that I've spoken to is interested, but is trying to lay it out and see what it looks like. So I think the first thing is to see what we can actually do. What are those trainings that will allow for them to build their skill set that will put them in another position? And so my hope is that I'm putting out, maybe certainly by the end of this fiscal year, have something laid out, a process laid out or a program laid out, and see what that looks like.
Okay. You mentioned CDL opportunities for those individuals to get licensed with CDLs. And I'm intrigued by that because thinking about my days, they've been a blur lately, but I think it was just yesterday, I was visiting a business in Ward 5, and the employer in this business has a good number of employees. A significant number of the employees are drivers, and they have CDLs. And he had mentioned having a recent hiring fair where at least 12 of the jobs they were looking to hire for were CDL drivers,
Mhm.
and that they had challenges finding district residents to fill those specific CDL jobs. They'd like to be able to hire locally. They want to hire more district residents, but they're finding it challenging to identify individuals who are district residents with the skills and experience to hire. And I think part of the challenge is, you know, and I'm not expecting you to solve it right now. Perhaps you have thoughts and a response right now, but where we do get it right, given all the things, 'cause we do, I think, a significant amount in the district in terms of workforce development training and
Oh,
providing
yes.
opportunities for people to get trained with CDLs and other things. But if they are unemployed at the time, they're getting this, and then they get those skills and they're fortunate to get that job, the question becomes, where do they live, right? Perhaps they were couch surfing, perhaps they were living with family. If they get the training, get the job, are gainfully employed, and want to live in an apartment or some other, then where can they afford to live? So that sort of ecosystem, I think, needs to be approached more comprehensively. So I'm really interested in what you're talking about, and that you're talking to sister agencies too about what it looks like, because I find that to be challenging, and I've heard directly from individuals in DC about that challenge.
Yeah, and I'd like some time to think about that aspect of it. My thought initially when this, again, came up was, how can we create a pathway? You know, as Mayor has said throughout her administrations, you know, pathways to the middle class, but not pigeonholing, if you will, someone in one type of role. Like, we want to provide our returning citizens the opportunity to be employed and provide for themselves, but we also need to think about providing the opportunities for them to grow professionally, and that's about economic development as well. So how can we do that, and how can we work together and collaborate? One of the things you will hear from me quite often is about collaboration. I'm not someone that thinks that I can do it just by myself, but how can I work with my colleagues to create a program to support our district residents and support them professionally?
Have you ever looked at the clean teams? Because some of them, I would imagine, are for-profit entities that get the cleaning team contracts.
Some of them, you know what, I'd have to go back just to make sure. I don't know.
Alright.
I can give you that.
Okay, all right. And I'm only asking because, to the extent there is a for-profit entity that either is or could qualify to be a CBE, and particularly if they can qualify to be an equity impact enterprise with the potential for growth in contracting, I would challenge DSLBD to look at opportunities where these entities could contract with other agencies to do similar work, right? I'm not suggesting that they get in over their head, but if DGS has contracts of a modest amount, perhaps it's within the amount that can be sole sourced to clean a government building, school, a rec or something. Should there be opportunities that could be carved out, perhaps a sheltered market, sole source, for some of these entities? I know when we were experiencing the horrific COVID-19 pandemic, and we were doing a bunch of emergency contracts for cleaning of first responder buildings, fire departments, and police departments, et cetera. There were a number of opportunities extended to DC-based small businesses, CBEs, and maybe it's a growth opportunity for some of the businesses that are contracting to as clean teams.
So I've just told we have one clean team that actually is a CBE. So
I think I'm
can-
aware of that one. It's kind of where I was going with it.
Okay, yes.
Yeah, it's kind of where I was going with it.
I thought I was giving you some, okay.
No, I'm familiar with that one. I just think that I think two things. I think that there should be more.
Yes,
And I also think that maybe there's an opportunity to graduate
no,
out of clean teams if that sort of, and I don't, shelter market might not be the right phrase, particularly given where the courts are today. On the federal side of things and experiences that we're seeing at the SBE with the MBE programs on the federal side. But if there are opportunities under district law to sole source, and there is a demonstrated capacity and track record of providing quality services where CBEs that are clean teams can compete for larger contracts,
mhm,
what I see the potential for is to hire more people and perhaps to pay them more, right? So you're seeing greater opportunities in the economic pipeline provided by the government contracting. That's my thought.
no, I appreciate that, and we will absolutely look into that.
Okay.
Yep.
There appears to be a decrease in funding for innovation and equitable development of $155,000. How's this program going to function with this decrease, especially after not getting any enhancements in recent years?
So that was, that decrease is tied to an FTE and fringe. And so what we are doing at DSLBD is realigning and moving some staff around. So the impact will not be felt with that reduction.
Okay. Talk about any potential programming changes or any impacts that this proposed budget for your agency would have towards your efforts at supporting women-owned and minority-owned businesses.
So the work that we do in supporting women-owned and minority-owned businesses is through our CBE program. You know, of course, we are the program is race and gender neutral, but the majority of our SBEs that have identified themselves as minority-owned or women-owned businesses. So as we focus on training opportunities, as we focus on increasing opportunities for contracting with SBEs, that focuses on getting to that community, even though we cannot set aside opportunities for minority or women-owned businesses.
Let's talk a little bit about cannabis. This budget provides the agency with another one-time enhancement of $300,000 for cannabis, and you touched on it briefly in your oral testimony. How much was allocated for this purpose in FY 2023 relative to how much is proposed in FY 2024?
300,000 was allocated in FY 23 and 300,000 in FY 24.
Okay, so 300,000 for both years. And talk about the agency's mandate around this and why this program needed to be restored. I'd love to hear you explain just specifically what the agency has done with this funding in FY 2023.
So there was a lot of, if you don't mind, if I just go back to FY 2022,
Sure.
just to start, there was a lot of work that was done as it relates to outreach and getting an understanding of the businesses that are out there, the business owners that are interested in cannabis, and what can really be done with cannabis. And so through a lot of workshops, trainings, technical assistance, and for information gathering, what we were able to do in FY 23 is work with a local CDFI to create and what is called the NOV fund. And so what that fund does is set up to create access to capital, because as you know, it's difficult for these types of businesses to get loans or grants. And so we spent those funds in FY 23 being able to get that fund set up through local CDFI. In FY '24, we intend to use, are planning to use those funds. $50,000 of that $300,000 will go to the local CDFI to continue those operations and running the fund to distribute loans and grants to small businesses. $100,000 will be used to for grants to businesses to do training on cannabis and the cannabis industry. So providing real estate training, providing training centered around the cannabis industry to other local businesses that are interested in getting into that industry. And then another 150,000 will be used as direct business grants to businesses in the cannabis industry. I think I got that right.
And in terms of like just input, I wanted to hear about this because I suspect you know that an agency that I also have oversight of in my cluster of agencies has a similar fund, the Medical Cannabis Social Equity Fund, that was repealed in the mayor's proposed budget, and I'm looking to understand the fund in DSLBD and why it exists and what exactly it's doing. And that the APCA funds for transitioning these businesses were swept. And what are your thoughts about how you're using the funds in your budget and what's proposed for FY 2025 relative for what was intended through APCA's fund?
So I'm going to let my chief of staff answer that question.
Okay, just mention your name for the record.
Hi, good morning. Bob Dorsey, Chief of Staff, DSLBD. So I think one of the key differences between the Innov Loan Fund and the Social Equity Fund is that the intention of the Innov Loan Fund was to be a little bit more broad. The goal is specifically to serve communities, returning citizens, women, minorities, and individuals through our local CDFI partner, whereas the Social Equity Fund is a little bit more restricted to social equity applicants and those persons who specifically meet those statutory requirements.
Thank you for that response. I'm certainly gonna have some follow-up on that in terms of getting a little bit more detail from the agency about the fund and how it's intended to be used. And so I do appreciate the other response today. Let me ask about, I just had the Office of Lottery and Gaming appeared immediately before DSLBD, and I wanted to ask a question or two about something relevant to your agency about gaming. I asked about the CBE spending for the current lottery and sports betting contract. And I know that, and then this came up in performance oversight as well, that your agency has been, I'd say, really, I think, critically evaluating the performance of the existing contractor as it relates to its CBE spend, and in fact, sent a letter to the vendor some time ago raising concerns about whether or not they would be able to meet their CBE spend given the rate at which they had been spending. What's your understanding of that contractor's CBE spend? The director of the Office of Lottery and Gaming said on the record today that he expects the contractor will meet their spend. what's your understanding of how things are going right now?
My understanding is they are on track to meet their spend.
Okay, what's the most recent report you received with respect to their compliance with their CB subcontract requirements?
So the team, we receive quarterly reports. I can give you the most recent number I received was, I believe, in January, but I'm happy to get that to you. I don't remember it offhand, but based on the numbers, they were on track. They were on track to meet their 55.58% spend goal.
Can you provide us with the most recent quarterly report that you have? And
I'll
have,
provide, absolutely.
and have you received all their quarterly reports in a
Yes.
timely manner?
Yes, we have.
And so you have no concerns with their meeting their requirements under the contract?
I have no concerns as long as they continue to move in the direction they are. The last number, like I said, the last number I saw, they were in line as long as things continue the way they are to meet their goal.
And with the most recent quarterly report you had, it wouldn't include the last 6 months of the contract. If you got it in January, what would that have represented?
I received, it probably was as of the end of the fiscal year.
You know,
of the
rather than
end
have
of
you
the fiscal
speculate,
quarter, Yeah,
if you could just
but
provide it to the committee.
absolutely.
Yeah, and then, and you were gonna say something, I don't
I
mean
was
to
just
cut you
gonna
off.
say that number, I went through all the spend and so the contract right now is at a 55.58%
Mhm.
of the goal, of the contract amount. And they were at that time, and I believe the number I took a look at was in January. They were at that time slightly over that 55.58%.
Okay.
That's why I feel comfortable that they stay on track, that they are.
Okay.
they'll meet their goal.
And your agency recently granted a waiver to the OLG for a contract modification related to interlot sports wagering contract, correct?
Yes, we did.
And it was, what's your understanding of what that waiver was for?
So there were, the scope of work, as it relates to the sports wagering part of the overall contract, was going to be now subcontracted to a non-CBE eventually, is what it ended up happening. But they were pulling that piece of work out of the overall contract. And so they then needed to submit a waiver. We wanted to make sure that there were no other CBEs that could provide that particular form of work. And so that's why the waiver was posted
Okay.
and approved.
And the contractor with whom Intralot is subcontracting is a large sports wagering mobile operator, correct?
Yes.
And has DSLBD in looking and evaluating that waiver, have you looked at any other jurisdictions within which that operator has a contract to see whether or not they're working with CBE is unique to the District of Columbia, but other minority contractors?
We have not. We have not.
Okay. I'm asking because I'm curious as to whether or not that vendor who is a subcontractor perhaps has the ability to contract with minority contractors and whether they maybe have already done that in other places.
Yeah, so what I understand is the work that they are doing is proprietary. Now, again, we haven't looked to see other contracts they may or may not have, outside of the
Yeah.
district.
I
And
would
so-
encourage you all to do that,
Yeah.
to see whether or not, I mean, because if they're working with minority contractors as a part of a sports betting mobile operation in other places, would that inform DSLBD's evaluation of whether or not they could do something similar in the District of Columbia?
What that potentially would do would be to inform whether that particular scope of work has the ability to have subcontracting. to
Okay.
it. So when the waiver was posted, there were no it's posted, CBEs have the opportunity to see it. There were no responses saying, hey, I can do this work. So it certainly would be helpful to know if that scope allows for CBEs to subcontract. Oftentimes, when you hear proprietary, there may be pieces that are proprietary, and maybe there's something that can be pulled out. So that's
Right.
something we can.
In my experience, though, in evaluating waivers over the years, I think often you hear proprietary, and there's a notion that there's nothing that CBEs can do, when in actuality, there are aspects of work that CBEs could perform that are not proprietary and wouldn't conflict with.
That's
Yeah.
why I think we are unique in the sense of the fact that the waiver is posted and someone has the ability to look at the waiver to say, there is something that, based on the scope of work, I can do this piece. Now, they're saying it's proprietary, but any other place, other people can do it. I'm doing it in this jurisdiction or what have you. So I think there's still work that we can do, and we certainly can, and we'll be willing to take a look and see if there are other opportunities that are happening in other jurisdictions. But I always want to, kind of prop up what we do here in the district, make sure that we're.
Let me
fully
ask this then.
transparent.
Do you all have the authority to ask questions about the scope of work?
Oh, yes. we
Okay.
do.
So perhaps the scope of work could be modified or be broader in some respect than what OCP or a particular vendor is proposing?
It could be. I mean, I think, our procuring agencies have they're the SMEs on a lot of,
What's the SME stand for?
I'm sorry, subject matter expert. And so there are certain things that, there are certain instances where, whether it's been me or someone from the compliance team may push back and try to get more information, because depending on what it is, we are still learning about a lot of the technical aspects of sports wagering. And so there are things that we know where there are opportunities, but when you get into a more technical part of it, we're still kind of learning
Right.
that.
I would encourage you all to look at what's happening around the country with respect to, mobile sports wagering, and in particular, some of the larger brands and companies are operating nationally in multiple jurisdictions. In this case, that operators, that company is operating in Maryland and Virginia, I believe. No, they're operating in Maryland for sure.
I'm not sure. It wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah. So,
Maryland,
so it would be useful. Maryland's generally more progressive around minority contracting, I would think. But it might be useful to see what they're doing in other places. Because I would look to DSLBD to perhaps use every tool under its authority to push back if there are, efforts to contract and limit opportunities that would otherwise flow to DC-based small businesses.
Yeah, and if I can just say, council member, I want you to know, that is absolutely what we do. We want to make sure that, whenever a waiver is requested, that we've done everything we can to make sure, if we have to approve it, that we've done everything that we can to make sure that this particular request, there are no opportunities for subcontracting.
So in terms of that, this final questions on this waiver, but in terms of that waiver for the sports wagering, did any CBEs comment or ask questions about the waiver?
I would have to check. I don't think.
It's my understanding that there were.
I'd have to go back and look at the waiver request. I can't remember if it was. Can I
Okay.
get back to
Sure,
you on that?
sure. If you could, that'd be helpful.
Yep.
Okay. What was the DSLBD's spending goal for 22 and 23, and where'd you all end up? The CBE spend.
Sorry. In FY twenty-two, I believe it was roughly $1 million. Actually, the goal was 1 million. We expended 1.1 million.
Okay.
We're still going through our FY twenty-three numbers currently, but
Mhm.
we're trending towards meeting our goal as always.
Okay, and then another agency, I don't remember which one, it must have been OLG, but they were talking about they're going through reconciling the CBE spends. Does it typically happen at this point in the year, or is this late for this to be happening? Because I know we're in the third quarter of the fiscal year.
We are actually going through that process. It does typically happen around here when we get to calculate the final spend
Okay,
and the final goal.
all right. And so what I would like is for you all to provide the committee with the list of all the agencies with expendable budgets to let us know specifically what the numbers are, but with an eye towards any agencies that did not meet their goal. And what, if anything, DSLBD is doing under its authority to compel compliance of those agencies that did not meet their goal.
Okay.
If you could talk about the access to capital services and business opportunity line item in your budget. It looks like it's being cut a bit, maybe $246,000 or so. I don't know if that number is accurate. But it looks like it's been cut repeatedly over the years. At some point, it was around $8 million, I think in FY 2022. And now it's 2.6 million in FY 2025 proposed. If you could discuss that.
Curtis, address that.
Sure.
Sorry, so can you just refer to which line you're looking at? Business opportunity, access to capital,
Yeah, we're looking at the budget book table
Type 4.
EN04. Yeah,
and the reduction of the 246, right?
correct.
Okay, and the FY 25 budget is 2.6 million, and it's down 246 from 2.9. That is essentially the net reduction from removing food waste and the Tacoma bid from the budget,
So Tacoma bid has been removed from the budget,
about 46,000
about 46,000. And then the
and
food waste is,
300,000.
okay. Talk just a little bit more broadly about the historical reductions. What were was there a different funding source for this item in the budget? Because it was over $8 million in FY 2022. It went down to 3.9 million in FY 2023, to 2.9 million in FY 2024, to proposed 2.6 in FY 2025. So it's pretty significant to go just a few years ago from 8 million down to 2.6.
So I would have to look into that and get back to you
Okay.
just to see what that source was.
If you
back in
could,
22,
I would
'cause
really
that's-
appreciate it.
Yeah,
I'd like to better understand what that is.
certainly.
Talk a little bit about enforcement, same chart, same table. It's 1.3 proposed in FY 25. It's only decreased a little bit from FY 2024 approved, it's about $20,000, give or take. But I'm just curious about how enforcement is going and sort of what goes into that portion of the agency's budget. Is that just it's CBE compliance enforcement? I should have been more specific.
And you're asking about like what that
Yeah, just the
reduction would,
reduction. It's a very modest reduction. I'm just curious
yeah, it's,
what it,
That's just a reduction, a salary reduction.
okay,
mhm.
okay. Where is the funds that are received as a result of fines and things of that sort that the agency issues? Where do those go?
So those would go in our SPR, O-type funding. We haven't received the fund in quite some time. However, we did have some carryover funding.
Mhm.
I believe it was roughly $669,000, which has been expended to date.
Okay.
So
And was there, you say you all haven't received it in a while. What do you mean by that? Have there been funds that have been swept for and then gone to the general
no,
fund or
we
just?
haven't received a fine in over, I think this will be the second year we haven't received a fine. Our last fine we
Have you
received-
issued any fines?
We have not issued any fines. We have, there have been some letters that have gone out for prime contractors that may not have submitted their quarterly reports, regularly. If you don't submit your quarterly report on time without communicating, there's typically, you can be assessed a $5,000 fine.
Okay.
And so we've had some letters that have gone out, but the compliance team members have been able to work with the prime contractors in understanding what actually happened. So we haven't had any of the larger fines, that typically funded the SPR in the past.
I'm gonna have some follow-up around just the CBEs and fines and some of the larger government beneficiaries in terms of how they're performing. I don't know if government beneficiaries is the correct phrase, but the larger government contracts that have CBE subcontracting requirements. I'm curious as to how those contractors are performing in terms of their CBE spend.
Yep, we can have, certainly happy to have follow-up conversations and provide you that information.
Okay. All right. I don't have any additional questions at this time. Is there anything else you'd like to add to the record before we adjourn?
I would, again, just like to thank Mayor Bowser for the opportunity to serve in this role. Thank you, council member, for the years of work that you have done to support our small local business community. And I want to thank my team that's here for the work that they put in to this effort. So thank you.
And I want to thank you for your testimony, you and your team for your testimony here this morning. I want to thank all the government witnesses who provided testimony to the committee this morning. As a reminder, those interested in submitting written testimony for the record may do so until Monday, April 24th. Submissions should be uploaded via the new hearing management system on the council's website at dccouncil.gov. Again, that website is dccouncil.gov. Our next budget oversight hearing of this committee will be on April 30th, 2024. There being no further business before the Committee on Business and Economic Development, this marks the end of today's hearing. The time is now 11:56 a.m. and this hearing is adjourned.